Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I am OHLEEN, and today I want to talk to you about the Kenyan youth, Kenya as a country. Hopefully I will do this topic justice, but if I miss anything, if I misspeak, comment below and add it and let me know, or let us know. This topic is a little bit more serious than what I usually talk about. My channel is usually very motivational, very encouraging about the idea of being in Africa, about the idea of moving to Africa, about the idea of traveling, especially traveling solo as a female on the African continent. So Kenya has been shaking things up. Kenya has been in the news more and more lately, and that's what we're diving into today. Something that is shaking up Kenya as a country and potentially the continent in terms of how young people protesting are perceived and the impact they can have both negatively and positively because of the change in the way protests are happening. You've probably seen hashtag reject finance bill, hashtag occupy parliament, hashtag Gen Z power, and I will do my best to explore into this into more detail and look into what is really happening and what is the cause and what is the effect, and why are Kenyan people on the streets, and what does this potentially say about the future of leaders or the young people on the continent and in Kenya as well. So let's paint a starter picture, and we are in mid 2024. The Kenyan government is proposing, in fact actually no, they proposed a finance bill that is basically taxing everything, and it was taxing bread, it was taxing Pampers, it was taxing vehicles, it was taxing more than the usual things you see taxed. Essentially, the people felt like at this point you might as well tax the air we're breathing, because that's what it looked and felt like for the average Kenyan living in Kenya. Now, why is the government thinking in this direction in the first place? It has a lot to do with debt. Like most countries and most people, when your money is not adding up, you don't think straight, you don't behave properly. And essentially, this is where we are in Kenya. They have a massive debt. And who is the debt with? You may be wondering. The IMF, of course. I want to do a separate video that looks into who is the IMF exactly. Similar to the WHO video, which is the World Health Organization, that I did, again, that was inspired by activities in Kenya. Kenyans push boundaries. I love it. I'm here for it. I mean, especially when you look at neighboring countries like Uganda. Ugandans are more polite, they're more conservative. Kenyans are like, Anyway, I want to do an IMF video looking at who they are, how do you qualify for finance, and what are the typical terms a country finds itself under with the IMF, because it's that is causing them to essentially, this response of taxing bread and air is coming from the fact that they now have realized they need to pay back this debt. And obviously the people are not happy, because most times when debt is incurred by countries, the average person is not consulted, or the level of transparency is just not there, and you just end up having to pay it back. What it was used for originally, no one knows. It seems like no one really knows where this money, these huge debts, go or contribute towards. Okay, back to the finance bill. So it is this finance bill that made things get very spicy in Kenya, get very tense, actually, forget spicy. It was this that sparked not your usual protest. The reaction, the cause and effect from this finance bill got Gen Z interested in politics, got Gen Z reacting and responding. And they used TikTok, social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever they could get their hands on social media wise, and any tool that is digital, a Gen Z powered with it in masses, it's going to create an explosion. And that explosion was in the form of young people protesting. People could really feel it. And generally though, I do feel like Kenyans in general, they don't take shit, basically. People stormed parliament, like literally. The government's response, well, it was tear gas, bullets, it was blacking out the internet, it was shutting down live TV. It got very, very messy, and it violated a lot of international laws, but it was reported, and the reports estimate around 22 to 50 people lost their lives that day. Typically, most people say that the official numbers are usually diluted. Now, back to why I'm making this video: the symptoms, the cause, the effect, the approach. Does it work? Is it working? With this particular example, the government did backpedal. They withdrew the bill, and the president himself announced they will be revisiting it. Ministers were reshuffled, and police investigations were opened to tackle how protesters were handled. At least it looks like, from outside looking in, something tried to happen, or the government tried to hear the people's cry and adjust. So for the Kenyans watching this, please let us know in the comment section, how was that handled? Where is it now? And what has changed or is changing? I wouldn't be surprised if not much has changed, but probably that bill was repackaged. So interesting to see what happens there, or what people are feeling and saying. One thing I will say that is quite different, again, correct me if there are other examples, quite different about Kenyan politics, is the president actually comes out to address and speak, and it seems to be done in a, I'm not commenting on the results, I'm commenting on the fact that he feels present in his role compared to other African leaders. Now, you could say we're comparing bad apples to bad pears, but the fact that he came and announced a rejig in itself is something. There's something to be said there. From outside looking in, a question still remains: is this a win? Is this what Kenyan people want? And that is a question I can never really do justice, because I don't live in the country. However, looking from outside in, it looks like the answer is generally no. There's still a lot more to be done. And the truth is, the protests didn't stop. And the reason they didn't stop is because it was more than just bread. It was more than just tax. It was now about corruption. It's about brutality, police brutality specifically. And it's about an entire generation that is really tired of being taxed to death at this point, with no way out, whilst people that have more are still able to maneuver and wiggle in and out of the system. So now let's fast forward to 2025, and the protests are back, and they seem to be even bigger. Okay, even louder. This time it's sparked, emphasis on sparked. Protests are sparked by a tragic death of a blogger, a social media blogger who died in police custody, Albert Ojwang, who was a 31-year-old male. He was known for being outspoken on social media via pseudonym. I don't know if he had more than one. Well, yeah, he had more than one platform he was using, essentially to speak against police misconduct and misuse of government funds, essentially. So because of his death, Kenyans are essentially saying, we can't vote our way out of this situation, this approach to handling free speech, and so we will protest our way through it. And when you zoom out, comparing to neighbors like Uganda and Ethiopia, you know, the approach feels very different. Yes, it's a protest, but there's definitely a feel that is very specific to how Kenyans approach things when they're unhappy, and it's coming with an energy that really forces and causes the right people to have a rethink at the very least. Because the protests are more and more digital and easy for outsiders to get insights very, very quickly, it's really reshaping how protests are perceived, organized, and the impacts that they have. What I personally find fascinating about Kenyans specifically, and specifically about the Gen Z generation, is their approach, which has a lot of energy and is, I mean, Gen Z and social media, they're one and two, you know. It's very clear in their approach. It's not about opposition. It's not about, you know, politicians love to say, oh, it's this opposition party that's smearing my name, that's why these people are protesting. It's not about that. It's very clear that these people have joined hands as people to criticize bad governance. So it's citizens versus bad governance. And if you look at history, a lot of things that have caused big shifts in society come from protests rather than people voting, comes from people uniting together rather than people picking a party as such. And when Kenyans do it, they're very bold, they're very creative, and sometimes incredibly funny as well. I think that's just typical of Gen Z. That's just typical of the times we're in right now. We know how to manage through the negative, the emotions we're feeling, whilst getting the message across, but also somehow creating memes and just making light of a situation whilst also addressing the issue at hand, if that makes sense. Now, whilst Kenyan protests really unite them, and they are not about tribes, they're not about parties, they are about coming together as one, as a people, there's still definitely a lot of work to be done, but they definitely have us watching and they have our support, especially in calling out what is wrong for what it is and what is right for what it is. I personally am very, very fascinated with their energy, their approach, and I really hope we take a leaf from their book for where we all come from, where we all call home. And I think their approach as well puts leaders at the forefront, puts expectations and standards at the forefront to know what is being accepted in A country and what is being tolerated in B country. It levels to some extent the playing field, or expectations, or standards, whatever you may want to call them. Like I said, some of the memes, to be honest, I think the best description for them is pure art, because they are funny, but at the same time they are carrying a message that is equally or even more powerful than the joke that is accelerating the creation or the meme itself. So I hope that kind of introduces the topic to you and summarizes it for you to start watching and looking out for updates on it. And if you are in Kenya, or if you are Kenyan, or if you are somebody with more insights or up-to-date information on this topic, please do add in the comment section your thoughts as well. I'm going to pause here. Thank you so much for staying to the end of this video. Stay safe, and I will see you in my next video.